All right, so, we like to do these deep dives, and today we're going to be taking a look at this article from Fazioli Publishing, and it's called From Primary to Middle School, Where You Should Be Financially.
Mm-hmm.
And, wow, there's a lot here. Budgeting, saving for college, the tech costs that come up every year.
Yeah.
That always seems to get me,
Yeah.
even estate planning, which I haven't even thought about, honestly.
Right. It is smart to start thinking about those things early on, though. Facioli Publishing, I think they lay out a pretty good landscape of what it looks like when your kid moves into middle school financially, and that is the time when things really do ramp up in terms of costs.
Okay, so let's start with budgeting then, I guess.
Yeah.
The article mentions these like beyond the backpack costs, field trips and extracurriculars, and it just seems like things get so much more specialized and expensive compared to elementary school.
Yeah.
Is that really a big jump?
It can be a really big jump. Yeah. Middle school is often when kids start to specialize in their interests. So instead of just general after-school programs, you're looking at travel teams, you're looking at specialized equipment for music or sports,
Right.
things that definitely hit the wallet harder. And, the article is right to emphasize prioritization here.
Yeah.
Help your child pick one or two things that they are truly passionate about rather than trying to do it all. And I think both your budget and your child's schedule will thank you.
For sure. I can see that. It's
Yeah.
tough though, right? You want them to try new things, but you also don't want to go broke in the process. I mean, did you run into this with your kids?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
My youngest, he tried to do soccer drama club and coding camp all at the same time.
Oh, wow.
We were constantly on the go. I think we spent more time in the car than we did at home.
Hmm.
We learned the hard way. Sometimes less is more.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
bet. Okay, so beyond those immediate costs, the article talks a lot about 529 plans. I know the basics, set it up, hope for the
Yeah.
best. But is there anything beyond that?
There's definitely more to it than that. A lot of parents just focus on consistent contributions, which is great, but you can be more strategic about it.
Oh,
Like, for example, you can think about front-loading your contributions early on,
mm-hmm.
let that money grow for longer, potentially give you a bigger return down the line.
Okay.
Also remember that 529s aren't just for college. If you're thinking about private middle school, some of those funds can be used for that, or even enrichment programs like tutoring or specialized camps that go beyond the typical school curriculum.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about using it for those things. It's like investing in their well-roundedness, not just their academics.
Exactly. And don't forget to look into state-specific benefits. Some states offer tax deductions or even matching contributions, which can make a real difference in your overall savings.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Actionable advice.
I relax that.
Now, let's talk tech. The article says that tech demands increase in middle school. I swear my kid's school already wants the latest everything.
Right.
What exactly changes at the middle school level, though?
Well, for starters, the type of work that they're doing gets more complex, so software needs change. Schools often have specific laptop requirements. Maybe they need a more powerful processor to handle design software or video editing.
Okay.
Suddenly, that little Chromebook that they used in elementary school isn't going to cut it anymore.
So it's not just about wanting the fanciest gadget. It's actually about needing a certain level of tech to keep up.
Exactly. And it's important to note that this can create a digital divide.
Oh, yeah.
Not all families can afford to keep up with these evolving demands, and it puts some students at a real disadvantage. It's
Okay.
something to consider even if you're fortunate enough to afford the latest and greatest.
That's a really good point. Okay, moving on. There's a whole section on health costs. And I guess I'm still stuck in the Band-Aid and ice pack stage of things.
Right.
But I'm guessing it gets more complicated in middle school.
Oh, yeah. Middle school brings sports physicals, regular vision, and dental checkups. And some schools even require annual checkups now. You really have to factor all that into your budget and insurance choices. Don't wait till the last minute to figure these things out. It's much less stressful to be prepared.
Yeah, good advice. I hadn't even considered that insurance could be affected by what the school requires. Now, here's where the article kind of threw me for a loop: estate planning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my kid's just going to middle school, not off to college. Why bring that up now?
It might seem premature, but it's actually a really smart move to revisit your estate plan as your child enters this stage of increased independence.
Yeah.
Think about guardianship. What happens if something happens to you? Are your wishes clearly documented?
Yeah, guess I haven't updated my will in a while.
It's something a lot of parents overlook, and while you're at it, think about aligning your family goals with your child's development. Maybe you want to start saving for a big family trip, or even consider moving to a different school district. This is a good time to involve your child in those discussions too.
Involve them in financial decisions at this age?
Of course, keep it age appropriate, but even talking about saving for a vacation or a future move can help build their financial literacy and show them how money decisions impact their lives.
That's a great point. I never thought about it that way.
It's about planting those seeds early on and helping them understand that finances are a part of life, not something scary or taboo.
Okay, so we've covered budgeting, saving for education tech, and even estate planning. The article also mentions retirement savings debt management, even looking into tutoring now to see if your child might need extra help in certain subjects.
Yeah, and that's what I find so fascinating about this stage of parenting. It's like this perfect storm where you're juggling your own financial goals with the increasing needs of your child. But the key takeaway here is that it's all interconnected. Your financial health is a system, and every choice you make has ripple effects. It's not just about surviving middle school financially, it's about setting your family up for long-term success.
So it's not just about like throwing money at problems as they come up. It's about being strategic and proactive.
Exactly. And that's where knowledge really is power. The more you understand about these different financial pieces, the better equipped you are to make those smart choices that benefit your whole family.
Yeah, it really does feel like this whole new level of awareness you got to have once your kid hits middle school.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, back to school shopping anymore.
Absolutely. And, I think the article does a good job highlighting that shift. It's
Yeah.
not just about reacting to the expenses that pop up, but it's about thinking strategically and planning ahead.
Yeah, which I'll admit can be overwhelming.
There's a lot to consider here,
Right.
but I did like that the article gave some good actionable advice. It's not just like, doom and gloom, but it's like, okay, here's some actual steps you can take.
Right. And I think that's what's empowering about it. You're
Yeah.
not just like at the mercy of your finances. You can actually take control. Totally. So we've talked about like the practical stuff, but I'm curious about something that the article didn't really touch on,
Yeah.
which is how do you talk to your kids about this stuff without like, freaking them out or making them feel burdened?
Right. That's a great question. And, it's something I think a lot of parents struggle with.
Yeah.
We want to protect our kids from financial stress,
Yeah.
but we also want to prepare them for the real world. And it's tough to find that balance.
Yeah. I don't want my kid worrying about retirement when they're still trying to figure out how to open their locker.
Exactly. And so it's about finding that middle ground.
Yeah.
We don't have to overwhelm them with the details, but we can start incorporating these money conversations into our everyday life.
Yeah, like explaining why we're buying the store brand cereal over the name brand or packing lunches instead of eating out all the time.
Exactly. Perfect examples.
Yeah.
Those little moments, I think they can be really powerful teaching tools because they show our kids that money's a resource and that, we make choices based on our needs and our values.
So it's not about like sitting them down and giving them a lecture on economics. It's more about
Yeah.
showing them like how money works in real life.
Precisely. And as they get older and more mature, we can start to involve them in bigger decisions like setting family savings goals or planning for a vacation,
Yeah.
giving them a sense of ownership and responsibility.
Instead of just saying like, no, we can't afford that. Explaining the why behind it.
Exactly. And maybe even brainstorm some solutions together. If there's something
Yeah.
they really want, maybe they can come up with ways to earn extra money or,
Yeah.
contribute to that savings goal. It's about teaching them that they have agency and they can be a part of the financial decision-making process.
Okay, so we've covered the practical, the
Yeah.
emotional, and I have to admit I'm still a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Where do you even start?
Well, I think, the article really emphasizes that financial planning is an ongoing process. It's not like a one-time event.
Right.
So maybe just pick one area that resonates with you and focus on that.
So maybe I look into those state-specific 529 benefits you mentioned earlier.
That's a great place to start. Or maybe revisit your budget and see where you can make some adjustments to free up some extra cash.
Or maybe I just finally update my will, which I've been putting off forever.
See, you're already taking action.
I know.
The key is just to start somewhere and build momentum. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. There are resources available. There are financial advisors. You can consult even online communities where you can connect with other parents and share tips and advice.
Yeah. I think sometimes it feels like you have to have it all figured out, but the reality is we're all just kind of learning as we go.
Absolutely. Parenting and finances, it's a constant learning curve. The important thing is to be open to learning, to asking questions, and, adjusting our approach as we need to.
Well said.
Uh,
Well, I've covered a lot of ground here, and I really appreciate your insights. I feel like I have a much better understanding of what I need to do to prepare for this next chapter in my life.
Of course, it's been my pleasure. Always happy to talk about these important topics.
And speaking of talking about important topics, I like to end these deep dives with a little food for thought. Something for our listeners to ponder, as they go about their day. And the article did a great job of covering a lot of like the checklist items, but it got me thinking about like the social side of middle school.
Yeah.
It's such a time when kids are hyper aware of like what everyone else has and, their status and stuff.
Right.
How do we navigate that alongside these money talks?
That's such a crucial point because middle school really is like a minefield of social comparison.
Yeah,
And that definitely, makes this whole conversation around finances even more complicated.
right.
I think open communication is key.
Yeah.
Helping your child understand that value doesn't always come with a hefty price tag.
That makes sense in theory, but, it's tough where if we're over here talking about experiences and well-roundedness, but they're bombarded with messages about the latest shoes or the latest gadget,
Yeah.
it feels like we're fighting an uphill battle sometimes.
Yeah. It can feel that way for sure. And that's where, I think our actions as parents speak louder than words.
Right.
It's about
Yeah.
modeling contentment and gratitude, showing them that happiness isn't tied to material possessions.
So it's not just about what we say, but it's about how we live.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we're constantly, chasing the latest trends and stressing about keeping up with the Joneses, our kids are going to pick up on that.
Hmm.
But if we prioritize family time experiences, personal growth, that sends a much stronger message.
Yeah, it makes me think of this. The money doesn't grow on trees. Lectures we all got as kids.
Right.
It's not just about saying it. It's about showing them like a different way to think about value.
I love that. Yeah, it's about shifting that mindset from I value.
Yeah,
And it's okay to acknowledge that it's tough. We live in a very consumerist society.
for sure.
But, I think having those open conversations about advertising, about peer pressure, all of those influences that are out there that can help them develop those critical thinking skills.
Yeah. It sounds like it's less about controlling their spending and more about giving them the tools to make those mindful choices.
Precisely. And, it's an ongoing conversation.
Right.
They're going to make mistakes. We all do.
Yeah.
But I think each time we talk about it, we're helping them build that financial and emotional intelligence.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like we started with this like very practical article about like, the finances of middle school.
Yeah.
But we've really gone deep on like the emotional and social aspects, which I think are just as important, if not more so.
I agree. It's all interconnected. You can't separate finances from, your values from the kind of family culture that you're creating.
Yeah. Any final words of wisdom for our listener who's probably thinking, okay, that's a lot to process.
My advice would be to take it one step at a time. Maybe you revisit your budget. Look into those 529 benefits that we talked about. Maybe have that first conversation with your child about needs versus wants. Every small step is a step in the right direction. And don't be afraid to ask for help. There are, resources and experts out there that can guide you.
So much good advice packed into this episode.
Mhm.
I feel like we've given our listener a solid toolkit to navigate this next phase.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I just want to remind everyone that Fascioli Publishing has a whole series called Newborn to Tombstone, if you want to explore more of their articles.
Great resource. Yeah, they cover a lot of different topics.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into middle school finances. We hope you learned something new and, more importantly, feel empowered to take control of your family's financial journey.
It was a pleasure diving deep with you.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and those wallets happy.